Okay, so I want to do though a small-ish sugya in Hilchot Purim. I will qualify this that first I did not try to be comprehensive here in terms of putting all the Makarot. I want to sort of present a few central ideas. I went back in memory and I put Makaros as I remember having said over this sugya when I was in Shana Bet. So this is how I learned this sugya when I was your age.
You memorized all the Makaros.
Well, so I went back in my memory. I remember presenting it as the way I'm going to present it now. I haven't, it could be more thorough now, but this is the basics as I presented it then. I remember having the conversation where I presented the basics in this. Which should prove to you that you do learn things in yeshiva that keep with you forever. Amazing. Okay, but I wanted to just focus on a little sugya here. So the Mishnah tells us in Megillah, "Hakol ksherin l'korda Megillah, chutz micheresh shoteh v'katan, v'Yehuda machshir b'katan." Everyone is valid to read the Megillah except for a cheresh. What's a cheresh?
Deaf person.
So let's be precise.
Or a dumb person.
A deaf mute. A deaf mute in halacha.
So dumb.
Well, no, dumb can't speak. Deaf mute. Both.
Isn't dumb
deaf
both?
and dumb. But in general, the combination deaf mute.
Isn't dumb both?
I don't think so. Is it?
I think it might be
Just can't speak.
It's just
speech.
No,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's called lame, not dumb. Dumb is like shota.
No. In neuro, dumb actually means
Dumb
can't
means
speak.
can't
I thought
speak.
that's lame.
No, like you can't walk.
Lame. Yeah.
No. But anyways, a cheresh is a deaf mute. Now, in general, a cheresh is in halacha does not have mental capacity, is not chayav in mitzvot.
Is that true? He does have mental capacity,
In halachic mental capacity.
Well, he just can't communicate.
Good. So there's a big machlokes in modern poskim about if this is true in a world where they can communicate, in a world in which sign language is a norm, in which there are institutions that educate them. But in the ancient world, it is indeed the case that people who were deaf mutes, there wasn't technology or education for them, so they were inhibited in terms of their educational capabilities.
That sucks.
So there is a big machogat poskim as to their status nowadays, which is a fascinating sugya in its own right. Rabbi Bleich has an extensive piece where he surveys all the positions. He takes the position in his conclusion. It is a great chabura. It's a really fascinating sugya. Rabbi Bleich takes the position that a deaf mute who communicates and it clearly has intelligence, therefore, is not considered a halachic cheresh. You're making a note. It's a good chabura. It's a fascinating topic.
I have like a list of chaburas.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic. A shoteh is someone who is insane, probably.
If he sleeps,
crazy.
Sleeps in a
meaning it's the descriptions in the Gemara point to various types of insanity, right? Like sleeping in cemeteries, graveyards, well, so the Gemara has like several different simanim, all of which combinations of or whatever indicate the person.
What if you do them on purpose just so people can list you as a shota, but not?
So this is where it gets complicated. Are those simanim? Are there sibot? Right? There's a very fascinating tshuva in Ramosha where a fascinating tshuva, one of the best tshuva at Ramosha, and people love giving shir on this tshuva because it's so fascinating. Where there was a person who, for years, he got married. Before he got married, he was convinced that he was the Messiah, and then he stopped claiming he was Mashiach, and then he got married, and eventually he told Moshe that he had stopped telling people that he was Mashiach, but he still believed he was Mashiach. Another question was, could he give a get? Because do you have to believe him? Does believing that you're Mashiach make you crazy, halachically? Do you have to believe him that he now believes he's Mashiach and that he's always believed it, right? Because if you think that believing Mashiach makes you crazy, his kedushin didn't work, so you won't need a get, right? But at the time of his marriage, he wasn't telling anybody. So now, do you believe him But it's a problem because if you believe him now that he believes in Mashiach and you think that makes him crazy, then that means he's no longer believable, which means he can't tell you that when he got married he still believed. Right? So it gets very complicated because he gets into all types of fascinating combinations. Yeah. It's a very, very fascinating tshuva.
And this is probably why he was getting divorced, right?
Well, interesting. It's a fascinating tshuva. In the end, Moshe thinks he could, right? But fascinating tshuva. And Katan. A child, someone who's not. Now, Rabbi Yehuda validates the Megillah reading of a Katan. No, less than bar mitzvah. Yeah.
Or no, because sometimes it says you don't have to bar mitzvah as long as you understand what you're doing.
Good. So we'll see in the Gemara, but from the Mishnah we know.
We said this last night.
Katan, one second. No, last night we said that you should try to bring children, but none of them are chayav. You should bring them because we're talking about formally. Can they read it for you? Oh. And what's the normal rule in halacha?
If you're chayav,
you can only fulfill other people's obligations if you yourself are chayav. So now the Gemara says, so man tana chiresh di'ava namilo. Who is it who holds that a deaf mute you know what? I'm going to skip to Katan for. Let's read through it. Who thinks that a cheresh even b'diavad it doesn't work? Amar Rabbi Rabbi Yossi he ditana karei v'lo et shma v'lo hishmiya l'ozno yatsa. The one who reads Shema and doesn't hear it, you're still Yotzei. Rabbi Yossi Omer lo yatsa. So he says. Now the Gemara here, presumably, right? This is not necessarily a deaf mute, where right? This could just be someone who's deaf because he's reading the Megillah. So presumably here we're actually not talking about a normal. Right, deaf mute because he's reading, so he presumably has to talk. Right, yes, in this context we probably don't mean a deaf mute because he has to read the Megillah.
But I thought if you can't hear, then you can't really speak either or read because you don't know how it sounds.
It depends if you became deaf later in life, not necessarily. Anyways, but I don't want to focus on Cheresh. So the Gemara says, Shapir Dami. The Gemara says maybe we're talking about Rabbi Yehuda's position that lechatchila he can't read, but if he did, it's fine. So lo salkadaitach it can't be. Dikatani cheresh dumya deshotev katan, because the cheresh that we're talking about is a shotev katan, similar halachically to shotev katan. Ma shotev katan di'avad namilo, of cheresh di'avad namilo. And in the case of the shotev katan, it's clear that even post facto he can't read, and you wouldn't fulfill your obligation.
But how does it just compare the two without saying why?
Because you have all three. So the Gemara assumes that you would assume that what we're talking about in this Mishnah is that all three would be halachically equivalent.
Because the Mishnah presented it together.
Exactly.
Before they have to be equivalent.
So the Gemara says why? V'dilma hakadita v'hakadita. Why? Maybe just say each one is independent. Hakadita. This one the way it is, and this one the way it is. So the Gemara says, Miketani Seifa. He says no, because the end of the Mishnah says that Yehuda machshir bekatan. That Yehuda says that a child is valid, therefore, which implies that it's only katan. Michal dereisha lav Yehudahi, and that implies that the rest of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Yehuda.
Right.
Meaning Rabbi Yehuda is only speaking about the last line, and he's the author of that comment, but not of the whole Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "V'dilma kula Rabbi Yehuda." Maybe it is Rabbi Yehuda. Midami, no. Reisha l'psula v'sev l'kshera. It can't be because the first half of the Mishnah is invalidating and the end is validating. So then the Gemara says, "V'dilma kula Rabbi Yehuda." Maybe it's all Rabbi Yehuda. Utrei gavnei katan katanila, and we're talking about two different types of children. V'chasure mechzar v'hachi katani. And it's missing words, and this is how you should read it. That how kol kshir in the Kroda Megillah chutz mechereshot v'katan b'med dvar mamurim b'katan shelo yigil lechinuch aval b'katan she'yigil lechinuch afil lechatchila. Then maybe this is only a child who hasn't reached the age of education of chinuch, but a child who has reached that age is allowed to read. Shir Yehuda machshir b'katan.
That's kind of hard to read. He uses the same exact word. Like if you said machshir bekatan and then something else.
Correct. It's very hard to read, and therefore, and the Gemara ends up rejecting Ella, etc. And he goes on and he rejects this reading. But I want to just focus on this halacha of katan. So, which katan, in the end of the day, are we talking about in the Mishnah? A katan she'egil lechinuch or a katan shelo egil lechinuch?
Obviously, the one that's not meaning anyone under bar mitzvah, because
Which one?
For two
Higel lechinuch or lo higel lechinuch? Which one are we talking about?
Doesn't matter. It's the same category.
No, they're not the same category.
Well, I'm saying.
What's the difference?
In terms of the Mishnah, it's anyone that's under 13.
Why? How do you know?
Because, well, for two reasons. One, the first one would be because the only reason it only introduced a separate category of katan was only after tried entering that maybe Rabbi Yehuda was the author of both. But since we know that's not true, there was no need to qualify a second category of katan.
Good. So there's the textual issue, right? There's the textual issue,
and then also,
but now conceptually,
it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if the katan is in chinuch or not. He's not chayiv either way till he's.
That's not true. So now here's the problem. Here's the problem that we have to deal with. Okay, is that true? Is what you just said true? So an 11-year-old, okay, Higel lechinuch. Does that child need to hear the Megillah? Yes or no?
No.
That's untrue. Higel lechinuch. He needs to be educated. So does he or does he not need to?
I mean, the Shulchan Aruch says it's a minhag.
No, that's young children. Katan higel lechinuch. What does the words higel lechinuch mean? He came to the age at which you must educate him, which means must he hear the Megillah?
Yes.
Must you make sure that he hears the Megillah?
No, is hearing the Megillah?
Yes.
Education the only form of education? Not necessarily. Education's a wide thing. I mean, first of all, you can learn Megillah not through.
No, that's not how chinuch works. Your parents have to make sure you start fulfilling mitzvah before your bar mitzvah. Yeah. That's how it works.
Okay.
Right? When do we start teaching you Torah?
First grade.
No, when you start reading. As soon as you can read, you have to. As soon as you can talk, we start teaching you. That is the halacha. Right? The halacha, it's a mishnah.
Yeah.
It's a mishnah. Right? When are we chayiv to have you start taking a lulav and esrog? Chayav. Mishnah. As soon as you can shake the lulav and esrog, you must. Midin chinuch.
So you have to get that kid.
Katan hayodeh l'na'neya.
So you have to get that kid their own lulav and esrog?
Why their own?
Because a kid, I thought you can't give your own because a kid doesn't have the ability to give it back.
First of all, only on the first day.
Well, okay, I mean the first day.
On the first day, right? So you can deal with this problem.
Don't have the ability.
So that's subject to an interesting little machloket, which is can a katan be yotze with a borrowed lulav? That's a question for another time. Well, maybe not. We'll come back to it. But fundamentally, the Mishnah says, I probably should have just given you the main Mishnah in Sukkah, but katan hayodeh l'na'aneya, a child who knows how to shake, you give him lulav and esrog. Right? You have him shake a lulav and esrog. That's the halacha. What's the problem? So if I asked you, what katan are we talking about? So what's the problem? If the child we're talking about is, well, let's play it out. Which katan are we talking about?
In the Mishnah?
In the Mishnah. When we say that a katan cannot, according to the Tanakhama, fulfill people's obligations, and according to the can.
I guess the Mishnah would have to be talking about a katan that's in chinuch, because otherwise the other one would be too obvious.
So you'd say it can't be a katan shelo higel lechinuch for two reasons. One is maybe it's obvious. What's the other reason?
There wouldn't be any disagreement over it.
Well, right, meaning Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher, but there's no way Rabbi Yehuda says that a child who isn't of educational age can read the Megillah. That's nonsense. Right, that's nonsense. Which means that we're probably talking about katan hagil lechinuch. So now, katan hagil lechinuch, what would you have said? Should he be able to fulfill someone's obligation?
No.
Why not? What's your logic?
He's not completely chayiv, maybe?
Oh, so here's the problem. If I would ask you, can a katan fulfill your obligation in Kiddush? Well, no, let's leave Kiddush for a second. In this week, right? In Parshat Zachor, what would you say?
No.
No, why not?
He's not chayiv to hear it.
Well, that's not true. He's chayiv in chinuch. Why is he not?
It's like a lower chayiv.
So what would you say? Yeah, but there's a very easy answer there, which is, why do you have to read Parshat Zachor?
But the Evid verse is
No. It's a mitzvah d'oraita. It's biblical.
Yeah.
and the chiyuv of chinuch is Derabanan. And therefore, he's rabbinic.
That way.
He's rabbinic. You're biblical. You can't fulfill your obligation. What's the problem now? But now let's move to Megillah. What's the problem logically?
Megillah's Derabanan.
Megillah's Derabanan to begin with, and therefore, explain to me why a child
yesterday, maybe it's Deraisa.
No, the general value might be Deraisa, but the reading the Megillah is Derabanan, presumably. Well,
maybe.
Right? So, if I asked you, can a Katan fulfill Shegia Lechinuch, read the Megillah for you, what would you say?
I guess, yeah.
Well, but it's a machlok in the Mishnah, remember?
Well,
so now we've got to justify this.
Meaning if it's both Derabanan, then he's just...
Good, so conceptually, tease it out for me. So, what's one way to say that even a Katan Shegia Lechinuch is not allowed to read for you? Why would you say he can't read for you?
He has a different chiyuv.
What's the different chiyuv?
His is chinuch, whereas yours is...
So, okay, let's try to figure this out. So, well, first, actually, the first possible answer is what Daniel said before, which is maybe I'm tricking you, right? Is that maybe I'm just assuming that Megillah is rabbinic and chinuch is rabbinic, and therefore they're the same. But maybe that's not true. Maybe Megillah is something more than rabbinic.
It's also like an extra...
who says that?
It's also like an extra step, though. Meaning, chinuch is one thing, but then reading it for someone else...
This is why I wanted to run this experiment, because now you're thinking exactly as I thought about this idea when I was your age, right? It's the logic here is a very straightforward sugya. It basically emerges from one Tosfot, right? But possibility one is to say that even a katan she'gia lechinuch, right, is not equal to Megillah for a Gadol, because this is, let's say, Durabanan, and this is
possibly
it's not really Doraisa, but what the Meiri says, if you look at the last source here, 6, is 2 lines from the bottom. Nirin klal sharei Megillah takanat nivi'im hi. This is what we call takanat nivi'im, which is not quite biblical, but it's not quite rabbinic either, and therefore the child is only chayav.
I've never heard of this.
Pure rabbinic, and this is an upper level, prophetic level. Right? Because it comes from the period of the prophets.
So there's different levels to Rabbanan.
Correct. This is not quite Darabanan. This is not quite Darabanan. It's what we call Takanat Nevi'im. Right? So this is the Meiri's solution to the
So does Hanukkah also fall in the same category?
No, that's too late. The Purim is still Tanakh. Right. So maybe that's why he thinks it. Okay? So that's possibility one. But if you don't want to say that, so then your options are to understand the nature of Chinuch. Right, the nature of chinuch. So let's look at Tosfot, who asked the question. This is what I want you to understand. Again, the lumdus here is actually very smooth, and that's why I wanted to give it to you. And that's why I basically gave you the same makar that like I said, I gave it to you as I remember learning this when I was your age. Because
so when you were our age, you got 6 makar, but we get 22. Interesting.
Well, no, this was my introduction to it. Meaning, admittedly, when I did it, I also then went into the broader questions, the nature of Derabanans. But I left that off because I've done that for you. Well, no, I remember this is how I learned it when I did Daf Yomi.
Oh.
Now that I remember back, because when I was doing Daf Yomi, I would do the basics as I went along.
Never mind then.
What?
Never mind then.
No, so this is how this is the basic lumdus as it comes out. I think, yeah. You could always take it more in depth, but this was and yes, sometimes I have short makara sheets. Sometimes. Very sometimes. Okay, good. So Tosfos says, Kasha, Be'iza katan mayri, I below higia lechinuch, my time at Rabbi Yehuda, the machshir. If it's a child who didn't reach the age of chinuch, then this is nonsense according to Rabbi Yehuda, because there's no way you would say it's valid. V'amrina b'sof perik batra de Rosh Hashanah, because the rule that we're based on here is the rule in Rosh Hashanah, which is Kol she'eno mechuyav b'davar ein motzi achirim yidei chovata. If you're not obligated in something, so then you can't fulfill the obligation of somebody else. V'igil lechinuch, but if he reached chinuch, my ta'ama derabanan de paslei. So why do the rabbis invalidate it? V'halo kol ha'achirim nami ein chayavin ela miderabanan. Megillah is rabbinic to begin with, which means the adults are obligated rabbinically, and the children are obligated rabbinically. V'imkein kasha amay lo amrina dati derabanan umafik derabanan. So why don't you say that one who is rabbinically obligated can come and fulfill the obligation? Someone else is rabbinically obligated. Dehachi nami amrin perik mishameto. Just like we have in brachot, de ben mevarech la'aviv afal pishu katan v'yotzei v'verchato umuki lahatam kigon she'achal ha'av kizayit o kebeitzad v'shura derabanan v'ati katan shchiyuvo derabanan umafika av shelo achal ela shura derabanan. We say this by benching, that as long as the father only had a kizayit, meaning, because biblically, to bench, how much do you have to eat? Kidei sviyah. You have to be full, biblically. Biblically, you're only chayav kidei sviyah.
Deraisa, it's if you're satisfied.
That's what I just said. Kidei sviyah.
Oh, you said full.
Full.
Full does not mean satisfied.
Yes, it does. Kidei sviyah.
Well, you can be full, but hated your food.
Sviyah is full, right? Satisfied meaning by full, not like I'm happy. Full, not like I feel hungry, but I like feeling hungry because I'm on a diet. Not that you're high when you feel full, right? Kedei sviyah. But rabbinically, it's a beitzah or a kizayit. So the Gemara says that if a katan, if his father only ate a shir derabanan, so then he can fulfill his obligation. V'amay lo amrin kein b'Megillah. V'chein b'perek lulav ha'gazul damar ein katan motzi b'kriyat halel v'onin achrav mashin omrin ma'ishnam b'rachat hamazon. Same question by Hallel. So he said, V'yesh lomer da'olam mayri b'katan she'egi lechinuch. We must be dealing with a child that reached the age of education. So now, before we see his answer, so what possible answers can you have? So again, we saw one answer, which is the Meiri, which is to deny that Megillah is only the Rabbanan. Okay?
Right.
But now, tell me, what would you answer?
Well, you can
Before we look at those,
you can go two ways. One is that he can read it because they're both derabbanans.
No, but the Mishnah says you can't. The facts, the evidence is that he can't. Right? The Mishnah says he can't. Noah, what do you think?
No, the Mishnah only.
What do you think? Why? Right? What would you do? So tell me, why, if Megillah is D'Rabbanan and Chinuch is D'Rabbanan, why can't a Katan fulfill the obligation of somebody else in Kriyat Megillah?
Because his derabbanan is removed.
Okay. So,
Meaning the only reason,
well,
the
so
only way to say
so Daniel says
is
what we're going to see in
do
Tosfot.
another derabbanan.
Well, so Daniel's going to say what we see in Tosfot, which is this D'Rabbanan, right? The D'Rabbanan of Chinuch,
Yeah.
right? The Chiyuv Chinuch, for some reason, does not equal Megillah.
Megillah is direct derabbanan, but for a katan to be direct on Megillah is only through chinuch.
Good.
It's like an extra
Good.
step.
Okay, so this is actually literally what Tosfos is going to say. Exactly what Daniel says. Okay? Give me another possibility before we see Tosfos. I want to sort of get at the logical possibilities.
Say it doesn't matter, even if it's third party. So what?
So good. So
So
come on,
then-
guys. You're all missing the obvious, which is you've all bought Tosfos' assumption, hook, line, and sinker. But maybe you just have to reject Tosfos.
That chiyuv chinuch is derabbanan.
No, that's for sure true. You're missing something, right? You've bought his. What is Tosfos' fundamental assumption that's actually quite problematic?
That Megillah is D'Rabbanan?
No, that's fine.
That's the meiri.
Oh.
Well, no.
Right? Denying that Megillah is D'Rabbanan is Miri.
Yeah.
Saying that this is a step removed is Daniel and Tosfos, right? But there's another possibility, which is you've all bought Tosfos' assumption that children are obligated when they reach the age of chinuch. But
Are they obligated Derabanan?
No, they,
Oh.
come on.
Am I closer?
Well, come on.
What if they're just not actually obligated?
Yeah, good. How would you say that?
Meaning they're in the age of chinuch, but you don't have to teach them if you don't.
No! Come on.
That Megillah isn't.
No! Come on, guys. Think about it.
You are not the child?
Thank you. Thank you. Tozer is an assumption that a child she'egia lechinuch is personally obligated.
Just to teach themselves. Or
But who said? Maybe chinuch is an obligation on the parent. Right? Meaning, when a child reaches the age of chinuch, it is clear that they must be educated in mitzvot. Tosfot is mechadesh. If that means the katan is chayav midirabanan. But maybe he's not chayav at all.
no.
Maybe, stop. But maybe he's not obligated at all. Maybe what?
The parents are obligated to teach it.
The parents are obligated to teach the children. Who says that?
Me.
Nate.
Harashba.
Thank you. The Rashba says that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, him too.
That is. If it was.
Wait, does he?
If it was on the parent,
No, sorry.
Oh.
The Ritva says it. The Ritva says
If
it.
it was on the parent and not the child, then there wouldn't be two categories of different children, because then it
That's
wouldn't
not
matter.
Of course
So
it
who
would.
cares? Because
Of course it would.
it doesn't change anything for the child. It only changes it for the parent. So then why do you need two categories of children? Does it make a
What do you
difference?
mean? There's two categories. Those that have to be educated, those that don't.
But effectively, it doesn't make a difference for the child itself. It doesn't change the status
get
of the
that.
child.
So good,
It
guys.
changes it for the parent.
So let me give you. So first, let me prove to you that these two opinions. First, let me prove to these two opinions exist in general. Okay, then we'll plug it back into our sukkah. So skip for a moment to number 5. Tosfot and Brachot Memchet. I know you're doing the daf, so you should remember this, right?
Yeah. Wow.
So Tosfot quotes the machlokas between himself and Rashi. He says, "Mashmash imachol kizayit dagan sheyachol lahotzi af acherim she'achlu al hasova." It sounds like if a child would actually have eaten enough grain that he could fulfill others' obligation. V'tema v'arei kizayit eno chayav el midirabanan. V'hei chiati dirabanan upater midoraita, etc. Skip down 4 lines. Uperish Rashi de mechuyav dirabanan mechuyav karinan be. Aval katan she'egil lechinuch lo mikri mechuyav dirabanan. Daviv chayav lechancho. Aval alav ein shum chiyuv. Rashi holds that chinuch completely applies only to the parent. The child is not personally obligated in anything. And if Vikasha leperusho, and tells us I don't like it. Mikol makom kevon she'enim min Torah and amotzi acherim shemuchuyavim. Va'od dochak lomar b'katan shegil lechanuch kari einu mechuyav midirabanan. Te'einu mechuyav afiv midirabanan. Ken einu poter aviv. But Tosha said, I don't believe that, because then how could it be that a katan is ever allowed to fulfill his obligation? The Gemara seems to imply that there are certain circumstances in which a child can fulfill his father's obligation in benching. Ubahag perish te'achad shachol k'zayin and yochol lo tziachirim shachol k'divya. Loati derabanan, he quotes the Bahag. But what do you see? Rashi holds that the chiyuv of chinuch is on the parent, and therefore
So
is the
if
katan chayav at all?
Rashi and the Ritva.
So Rashi says this in general, and then if you look back at 4, the Ritva says v'hanachon the katan she'egil lechinuch eino mechuyav b'mitzvot klal v'afilu midrabanan. He said, what is this question that Tosha is asking me? You know why a katan can't fulfill someone's obligation in Megillah? Because he's not obligated. His father has to teach him, but he's not obligated. And what's the logic? Why would you say that he's not obligated?
Who, the child?
Yeah.
Because he can't teach himself.
Because he's a katan. Biblically, he's brother for mitzvah. What do you mean you're chayiv midirabanan? To put it more formally, let's say you're the Rambam. According to the Rambam, where do the rabbis get their power to impose mitzvot on people?
Torah.
Where in the Torah?
A pasuk that says,
Which pasuk, according to the Rambam? Lo tasur. Lo tasur min hadavar she'yagidlu chayim min small. But let me ask you a question. Are ktanim, are children, obligated in biblical law?
well, they're Jewish, aren't they?
Are they obligated in biblical law?
No.
No. So, by what power can the rabbis obligate them directly? They're not obligated to listen to the Torah, which means they're not obligated to listen to the rabbis because they don't have to listen to the Torah, which tells them to listen to the rabbis.
At a certain point, they are going to become.
They will be, but they're not now.
I know. So they
So
starting now.
So how can you directly impose obligations on them if they don't have to listen to you because they're not obligated to the Torah, which gives you the power? Right? There's a very simple logic to say, like Rashi, which is Katanim are exempt from mitzvot, including the obligations to listen to the rabbis, and therefore the rabbis have no power to impose obligations on them. So the best they can do is obligate the parents to educate them. So the Ritva says it here, right? He says, "Katan shegil lechinuch eino mechuyav b'mitzvot klal, va'afilu midirabanan, ela sha'anu mitzuvin alav lechancho b'mitzvot." And he says it's further. There's a machlok in the sugya, but he passed in the ocha afilu ochel nevelodim beidin mitzuvin lahafri shok and uchach masechet nida. Even if he was eating not kosher, the din doesn't have to stop him. Uchikadivna b'masechet v'dazara. And that's why he can't fulfill your rabbinic obligations. What?
Isn't Isser to feed him non-kosher?
Yes, to feed him, but you don't have to stop him. So that's an interesting question, right? There's a problem of feeding him not kosher, because that's l'hazir g'dol malakatanim, right? It's a different category. But to stop him from doing it for his own sake.
What if it's cheaper? What if he just can't afford more kosher food?
Doesn't matter. You can't feed him.
Well,
there are complicated.
Feed him, physically feed him, or buying him food even is feeding.
So it gets a little bit complicated what it means, right? Like the Chassam Sofer has a well-known tshuva on this topic. Where can a child who is or someone who's a shotah, I let to institutionalize him if the food is going to be not kosher? Right? Is that called machil biadayim?
Isn't that like health? Isn't that like
I'm not saving his life.
His mental health.
So
that can potentially end his life if it's not healthy.
No. There the logic ends up being more that the only way he'll ever become chayiv in the mitzvot if I treat his insanity, then maybe he'll remove him from the status of shotah, right? But it gets into this question. But anyways, another good sugya, machil yadayim, etc. So he says, and he says this is exactly the machloket Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama. Right? Meaning the Ritva says, what's the machloket in the Mishnah about whether a katan she'egia lechinuch can fulfill the obligation? The Tanakama holds that the obligation of chinuch devolves only on the parent, and therefore the child is not obligated at all. And Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that a katan can fulfill the obligation, must hold that at least for the purpose of Megillah, maybe not as general rule, the nature of the rabbinic obligation is. One second. The nature of the rabbinic obligation is
on the child.
Is direct. Let's read his line, then you'll ask me. It says, "Avahacha b'hakli Rabbi Yehuda." The Yehuda Savar came to Megillah Chinuch Shar Mitzvot Ra'uyu l'chayvo b'Megillah lefi shaya b'oto hanes. Since he was involved in the miracle, therefore he is considered obligated. V'ke'en shechivu banan Hashem shu p'turot mimena min adin. Fisha mitzvah say shazman grama v'chivu oto lefisha hayu b'oto hanes. Same way, logically, women should have been exempt because it's a time-bound mitzvah. The Ritva is assuming this. It's not clear that by derabanans that is an exemption. But he says, Rabbanan Tzarvi din Hashem ba'alma benot chiyuv anenu mechayivi bazeh shazu tam tilo mitzvah shalaz my grandma b'katan de patur afil misur chamurin shel Torah mention af mitzvah zo lo nechayev oto mitam shaya oto anes. The Chachamim said, look, women are in general adults. So when we choose to obligate them in this mitzvah, even though it's time bound, we obligate them just like we do adults. But Ktanim, who as people are not barei chinuch, right? They're not obligated on biblical level. We choose not to impose direct obligations. The Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, says, in this case, where he is obligated, we obligate him directly, and therefore he can fulfill the obligation. And this machlokes, meaning is chinuch, at least in the context of Megillah, on the parent and the child, is the machlokes Reb Yehuda and the Chachamim. Now, obviously, if you think that in theory the rabbis can obligate the child, they just don't always, then it can't be driven by the argument I made before within Rashi, right? Which is, how can you obligate people who are not obligated biblically? Because that's an all or nothing proposition, right? To say that certain mitzvot you will and certain mitzvot you don't, you obviously don't think there's the principled reason why the rabbis can't obligate Ktanim. But let's say you hold that chinuch in general is in fact directly on the child.
You still have Tosfot.
So now tell me, why would it be true if they are chayav directly? Why can't they fulfill the obligation? So again, one possibility is to say that the Megillah is more than a derabanan, right? The other possibility is to say there's two types of derabanan, right?
Or that it's an indirect. The derabanan of Megillah is indirect towards your child. Meaning
Why?
they're only chayav in Megillah because they're chayav in chinuch, which is another derabanan.
Good. So if you look, so that's Baruch She Kivanti, or whatever, She Kiva. This is how I understand Tosfot. So let me read you Tosfot. Tosfot says, V'yesh lomar de la'olam mayri b'kadan shehigia lechinuch. We're talking about a child who reached the age of chinuch. V'afilu hachi paslu rabanan mishum de Megillah leka chiyuva afilu b'gdolim ela mid'rabanan. It's invalid because Megillah, even for adults, it's only a rabbinic chiyuv. V'katan eino mechuyav ela mid'rabanan afilu b'shar mitzvah. And a katan is only chayav, even in other mitzvot, rabbinically.
That
Aval kedei sviyah.
he's in deraisa he's chayav rabbinically. So then in derabbanan he's chayav plus.
Uvigadol leka lechad derabanan. So the adult therefore has
Oh, that's cool.
one derabanan. Megillah, Shebishar mitzvot chayav midaraisa, because by other mitzvot he's biblically obligated. V'lo atri trei derabanan umafik chad derabanan, and a double derabanan can't be motzi a single derabanan. But now let's try to understand Tosfot more carefully, because what does Tosfot mean? Good, but what does he mean? I'll tell you how I think most people understand it, but I think Daniel's on the same page as me that that's not what he means. Right? What does it mean? What's one derabanan versus two derabanan? What does that mean?
How many levels there are to it?
So one, you could just say, look, this is just a level thing, right? Meaning everybody else, like they are, like whatever. They're just two derabanans here. I don't know, right? It's just a weak derabanan, right? That you could just say this, right? There's weak derabanans and strong derabanans, but I think Tosfos is getting at something more fundamental. What might he mean? So let's try this again. Daniel, what do you think? In what way, what does two derabanan mean? What's chad derabanan versus trei derabanan? What does that mean?
It means how directly it is. Meaning.
Good. What does that mean?
Meaning, at what point do you become chayiv in the derabanan? So, meaning the child, he's chayiv in chinuch. That's the direct one on the child, and Megillah is direct on everyone else who's chayiv in mitzvos. But it's not, the Megillah is not direct on the child. The only way the child becomes chayiv in Megillah is only after he becomes chayiv.
Good. So let me try to, let's push it a little bit farther. I think you're almost there, but I think you're saying the same thing I am, but I want to push it a little bit sharper, okay? I think what you need to do is ask a fundamental question, even within Tosfos' logic of chinuch. Okay? We know that Tosfos says that chinuch obligates the katan, right? That chinuch.
You can also say partly though.
Well, one second.
It obligates him in learning, but not in anything else.
Okay, so there's two possibilities, right? One is to read this as saying that chad and trei don't mean one and two. What do they mean?
Direct and indirect.
They mean like levels of derabanan. Meaning, he's chayav in Megillah, and he's chayav in like chinuch level Megillah. I don't know, something like that, right? Weaker. Or just say it's about levels. But I want to ask you a fundamental question. What does it the mechanism by which the rabbis obligate a child in mitzvah?
Through the
We said already their parents.
What?
through the parents.
No, that's Rashi. Tosa thinks he directly obligates it. But even within directly obligating, there are different ways you can do that.
It's directly obligated, but only when it relates to the child, meaning it can't affect anyone else.
So you could say that, right? But I want to ask you a more fundamental question, okay? Let me give you a mashal, okay? Let's take the mashal of a contract worker versus a full-time employee, okay? A contract worker, right? In what sense, why are they obligated to fulfill a particular task?
Get their money.
They were
Hired for that task. When an employee does that same task, why are they obligated to that task?
it's part of multiple tasks that they have.
Correct, it's because it's part of their job. Meaning, I didn't ask them to do this job, I asked them to be an employee, which has 10 or 20 or 30 different components to it. Okay? What is the nature of chinuch?
It's specific.
Is it that the rabbi said that you are not a bar chiyuv, but I'm going to directly give you a list of mitzvot that you have to keep. I'm going to give you a list of mitzvot that you have to keep. I'm going to tell you you have to keep tefillin, and I'm going to have to tell you whatever. Children might be different,
yeah.
but that's a bad example to start with. I'm going to tell you that you have to daven. I'm going to tell you that you have to learn. I'm going to tell you that you have to do lulav and esrog, mashi.
Kosher.
Or do I say that biblically you are not a bar chiyuv, you are not an employee of God yet, right? But rabbinically,
Yep, contract.
you are now an employee. Right? Meaning, is this contract work where the rabbi said, look, I'm going to give you, you're not obligated, you don't work for God yet, so to speak, right? But I'm going to give you a bunch of jobs that you have to do anyways. Or did they say, you may not, biblically, you don't yet work for God, but rabbinically, we're putting you on payroll. And therefore, you have all the same responsibilities as everybody, but the difference is that they're employees and you're interns. Right? It's the exact same job, it's just you're paid less, right? Or not paid, or there's no minimum wage requirements, or whatever, right? Meaning the exact same thing.
Very enticing.
Now, why do I say this is important? Because let's say you think that the way you conceptualize chinuch is that the Torah didn't say that the child is obligated to mitzvot, and the rabbis say, but we're telling you to do it. So now, why is the Katan obligated to read the Megillah?
Because the rabbis.
Because the rabbi said so. Why is the adult obligated to read the Megillah?
Because the Torah said to listen to the rabbis.
Well, which means because the rabbi said so. Right? Right? Meaning, if you think that the nature of chinuch, as the rabbi said, here are the mitzvot we're going to tell you to do, so then you could say, well, when why is the adult reading the Megillah? Because the rabbi said so. Why is the Katan doing it?
I think there's another way to look at it.
What's it?
I think you can say.
Well, let me get at this possibility. Then you can give me another possibility. I'm giving you a possibility, right? Possibility one is just means like two levels derabanan, right? Nothing too conceptual, right? The second possibility I want to suggest is that maybe what Joseph is getting at is that there's two ways of conceptualizing how you directly obligate a child. One is to say that I directly obligate him in each and every mitzvah. If that's the case, then I would say, is he obligated in Megillah the exact same way the adult is? I would say arguably yes. The rabbis told the adult to read the Megillah, the rabbis told the child to read the Megillah. But maybe what they did is they said, no. Listen, adults are on God's payroll, right? You are obligated the same tasks as an intern, right? You're interning for God. And when you turn 13, you'll become a full-time employee. But in the meanwhile, do all the same things that an adult does as practice. That is what I think Tosfot means when he says trade the Rabbanan. Because that's a very clear two-stage separation. Because what did the rabbis do? They didn't directly tell you to read the Megillah. What did they do? The rabbi said, rabbinically, we're making you an intern for God, and implicitly you will become obligated to do all the things a full-time employee of God would do, because that's what interns do, right? In a good internship, not a bad internship where you're getting coffee, right? In a good internship where they're saying, look, we'll actually let you work in the company. It's like, what do they call it in Canada? They have a term for it. They do this a lot at like Ryer. Is it co-op? Yeah, co-op, right? Where you actually take a semester off and you're a full employee, but it's your education, right? You're not yet a full employee. You're working like everybody else, but it's not an internship. Right? You're actually on staff and everything like that, but it's for a semester in school as practice. If that's the case, then I understand what Chad Rabbanan and Trade Rabbanan mean. Because the adult, why is he chayav in Megillah? Chad Rabbanan, because the rabbi said, read Megillah. The Katan, there are two steps. First they said, we are making you into an intern into the God workplace, step one. And step two is, and now you have to read the Megillah, because we have instructions for our employees and our interns, but that's two steps. And that, I would argue that maybe according to Tosfot, what chinuch is that they transform the child into a bar chiyuv d'Rabbanan, and then once he's a rabbinically obligated person, so then the obligations devolve on him just like they would on anybody else. But that's two steps removed. As opposed to if you conceptualize chinuch as in each mitzvah, the rabbis came and said, do this, do this, do this. Because once they're saying do this, what's the difference in the way they say do this to the adult and do this to the child? So I think that's what Tosfot might mean. What do you think Tosfot means? Do you have another possibility?
I don't know if it's clear that Tosfot is saying this, but it just might be a possibility is that the chiyuv, right, derabbanan for adults, it originates from obviously the Torah, where it says you have the rabbis. So the origin of the chiyuv Megillah for adults is deraisa, really. It's through deraisa, through derabbanan. But for children, it's not, because children aren't commanded through deraisa. So really, their origin is just derabbanan. It's just the rabbis came and commanded them to do chinuch. But it's not originally from deraisa. Good.
So I don't think that's what Tosfot means because of Chad Trey. I think what Daniel is saying is the Rashba says. So you look at 3, the Rashba says, V'li nireh d'chol she'ikar hamitzvah midrabanan k'megillah v'halal chamira u'mitzvah chinuch kilat tvei. He says, no, that's just not true. Right? It's just different. The adult is chayav in Kriyat HaMegillah. What's the Katan chayav in? Chinuch of Kriyat HaMegillah. It looks the same, but it isn't. It's just a different action. Right? The adult is chayav in reading the Megillah, and the Katan is chayav in educating himself in reading the Megillah. It looks the same, but they're not the same conceptually. They're physically the same act, but they're not the same. And so I think that's what... So, if you now have the postulation as I understand it, so you have the following. You have one is the Meiri, who claims that Megillah is Takana Nevi'im, and Chinuch, right? And Chinuch is just a regular run-of-the-mill Derabanan, and therefore Takana Nevi'im is more than Chiyuv Derabanan, and therefore you can't fulfill.
1240.
You have the Ritva based on Rashi, who says that what is it?
Chinuch is on the parent, not the child.
Chinuch is on the parent, and therefore the child is not obligated at all. Right? Katan is not chayav. Right? The father is. And then you have what Daniel's saying, which is what the Rashba is saying, which is you got it wrong. An adult is chayav, right? A gadol is chayav in
Megillah.
Kriyat HaMegillah. And the Katan is chayev in
Chinuch.
Chinuch Kriyat Megillah, which is just a different act. It looks the same, but it isn't. And then what I would suggest what Tosfos wants, Chad Rabbanan, Trei Rabbanan. Now, it's clear, according to the Rajva, is Chinuch a direct chiyuv? Like contract work? Yeah. Right? You do this. It's just that what I'm telling you to do is different conceptually. Tosfot, I think, who says Chad Rabbanan, Trei Rabbanan, what I think he means is that he's saying the way Chinuch works is in two stages. First, I put you on payroll as an intern, and then Megillah, you become Chayav Mitzvah, but there's always going to be, therefore, a two-step divide between you and the adult. Now, how do you explain to Yehuda's position that a katan can read? So, according to Meiri, how would you explain it? He must deny this, right? He probably denies this, right? He must just say
it's their button.
Right? He must say that there is no magic formula called prophetic obligations. He might just think it's rabbinic, and therefore, according to the Ritva, he tells you that the machloket is chinuch of Megillah on the father or on the child. If it's on the father, you can't. If it's on the child, you can. And the Ritva says that is the machloket. Zehu, that is the machloket. According to the Raj, but it's very simple. The argument would be, is chinuch the equivalent of Kriyat Megillah, or is it a special category called chinuch? Kriyat Megillah, and according to Tosfot, again, you'd say
it's just removed.
Right, there's the machlokes, right? Is it the same level obligation or not?
Yeah.
The last thing I will just note is the following. I want to just throw it out there. It's really a sugya for another time. If you want, we can do it more in depth. The problem is, as I mentioned before, is as follows. According to Rashi, that chinuch always only obligates the father, it makes sense how chinuch exists, because adults are obligated to listen to the rabbis, and therefore adults can be told that they have to educate their children.
Yeah.
But the fundamental problem that
how do you command a child?
Is how do you command a child? How do you command a child? So that's the question that you really have to answer. There are different directions you can take there, right? Either you can say, you either come up with a way that
you can
Tanim are really chayav in mitzvot somehow.
You can say it's like some kind of suggestion more than a commandment.
Right, you can minimize the sense in which they're chayav, or you can say the power of the rabbis to obligate people does not depend on the mitzvot of the Torah.
I mean, just because the Torah depends on the person doesn't mean the Rabbanans do?
Correct. The Rabbanans may independently be chayav, and that's it. I see that Daniel wants to understand what that might mean, so maybe we should take a day to do that. This is like fundamental ABCs of rabbinic power, so maybe we'll do fundamental ABCs of rabbinic power, just the ABCs of it. Maybe we'll do that.
I think that's what you should name this year.
Okay, but that's obviously the question that's left that we need to answer here. But like I said, I just wanted to lay out some basic possibilities here, but I think you've understood, this is a nice little window into some of the basics. So I guess it's nice lumdus just in setting up the basic Rishonim.
So how do we hold it today?
They can't. They're passing like Chachamim. I don't know why, which of those reasons is the rationale for it, but
I mean, there's enough. Doesn't really matter which one.
okay. Shkoyach, guys.